Oliver Dingley, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You are supposed to be going to Japan to try and qualify for the Olympics.
Yes, my only chance as well of qualifying for the Olympics, which is next month in April in Japan, which is a test event as well for the actual Olympic Games. And yeah, like I said, we get one chance, and yeah, it's in Japan, so it's kind of testing times, I guess. There's some things that are bigger than sport, which this is definitely one of them, is people's health. But also, having said that, we've got very good healthcare, and we've been given a lot of good advice, not just for ourselves, but also Team Ireland as well. Preparations against the virus contracting, anything you can do really to help yourself. And we have a prospect of going to Japan in less than a month's time.
Yeah, so it's FINA who are the governing body for swimming and diving, right?
Yeah.
And they, at the moment, are insisting that this is likely to go ahead in Japan next month.
They've done a statement saying that Olympic qualifiers will still be happening. They're pondering cancelling all FINA events, but as it stands, it's still going ahead. It's one of those situations which seems to be rapidly changing, but unfortunately at the moment it's changing for the worst, I think, all around the world. So we'll see how it goes. And yeah, the competition starts on the 21st of April, and it's that itself is getting close to the Olympic Games for qualifying. So I'd say that they're in a bit of a tricky spot as well, with people's livelihoods qualifying for the Olympic Games.
So what are the competing emotions that you're going through at the moment?
It's a weird one, really. It's just trying to focus on a day-to-day basis. Like anything, really, that's kind of what I do with my diving anyway, is just get through one day at a time. And for me, it's just kind of keeping myself healthy, whether it's little niggles or doing anything I can get to get that extra 1%. But yes, it's a weird situation, one which I've never actually been in before. I remember going back to Rio where they had the Zika virus, and there was a lot of talk around it. Whereas this is on a whole different level. And with Rio, you were always confident that you would be going to the Olympic Games, and that there were a few athletes who dropped out. But as far as I was concerned, I was always ready to go whenever. So this is a much different scenario where myself, I have housemates, family members. My nan's in a nursing home, for example. So it's a really difficult situation, I think, for not just for me to be in, but the organisers who have obviously ploughed so much time and effort and money, and I can only imagine what they're going through. With
Ollie, what about, let me ask you, your training schedule? Because
yes,
clearly you're training to peak at an optimum time. Obviously, when it comes around in April, is that going to be affected in terms of not knowing now, in terms it could be delayed for an extra month, 6 weeks? You have to tailor your training program as a result, or physically are you where you need to be? It's not really, it's just really between a mental thing now in terms
I think that's it. I think it's the mental stability really in a sport like diving, where it's so technical. You can be as talented as you want and as strong as you want, but it all comes down to that mental element.
So physically you are where you need to be, whether it happens next month or like the month after that. It's not so much an issue.
Either way, I'll have to stand up a diving board at the end of the day and perform either way. So I'll be there on a diving board, and hopefully 6 dives and I'll have qualified for the Olympic Games.
What could they do? Is there a possibility that everybody could dive in their home pool at the same time? Like, how would they...
One gigantic Skype competition.
Yeah, like a Google Hangout. I mean...
I'm not entirely sure, actually, what's going to happen. I can't really think of... It's a big event, so to put an event like that on a short notice, but this just isn't a problem that's affecting Southeast Asia. This is a problem where you've got over 1,000 people in America, you've got over 1,000 people in Germany, for example. Big nations that we know of. And I actually looked at a graph the other day where it seemed that Germany and France and Spain were kind of 10 days behind where Italy were, but on the same projectile level on the line of kind of shooting up in similar cases. So I think it's obviously a worldwide pandemic. So I don't really see any other nation. The only capable nations really of putting on in the diving world events on that last moment tend to be Russia and China. And I can't see many people wanting to go to China. I know Russia have kept their numbers down low, but...
Not a single case.
No, but like India have suspended all the visas, I think, until the 20th, maybe. Oh, sorry, the 15th. So it's and Russia, they obviously have stringent measures with their visas as well, especially in a time like now. So it's I'm not too sure, and it's for the people of FINA to decide what they're going to do. They could count back results from last year, for example, last year's World Championships.
Did you qualify?
As it stands, yes.
Okay.
If they counted back the top 18, for example.
So you'd be behind that measure, clearly.
I wouldn't say no. But having said that, though, it's got to be a fair process for everyone involved, because when you go to the World Cup, there's about 70 odd divers who compete, and only 18 get a spot
at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they're talking about as a potential for the Euros was that everything would be suspended, but there would be a pre-Euros tournament where the qualifiers would happen. So Ireland would play Slovakia, and then the winners would play the Northern Ireland Bosnia winners the week before the tournament actually started. So you wouldn't know until the last minute. Is that a possibility? That it looks, I think the most likely outcome here is that the Olympics are going to be suspended either by a couple of months or potentially a couple of years, right? If there was a suspension, could they do a qualifier, so a slightly expanded 24 divers, so 18 plus the top 8 in the world who didn't make it through that?
Yes, it's a hard one because, I mean, each country has their own qualifying standard to get into the World Cup in the first place. And in a sport like diving, where I guess financially it's a bit harder to kind of plan things at last minute because you don't have the money in order to send a group of divers off to Japan with only a week to go, for example, on FINA's say-so. So it's a hard position to be in, but as of yet, like I said, they're still going ahead with the event, and I'm sure if they do go ahead with it, then there'll be every single measure in place.
And if they do go ahead with it, will you just go because that's your job?
It's my only chance to qualify for the Olympic Games, and it's the only chance I get to represent Ireland at the Olympics every 4 years, and I'll put myself in every position where I can go, in safe position as well.
Yeah, so assuming that there is no travel ban, but even if there is a travel ban, there's probably a likelihood that you'd be able to get a visa because you're technically going for work. So it's asking quite a lot of the athletes to put them in a situation where they have to do this to do their job.
Yeah, and it is our job at the end of the day to go compete. And going into the institute every day, we'll be screened. Institute of Sport in Abbottstown, we'll be screened. I know if you're going to, I think maybe Japan, for certain countries, you have to go through a 2-week screening process. So maybe it means we go out there 2 weeks earlier.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure. And then I guess then we'll be ferried from A to B when we get out there. So you don't really see much of anything apart from the hotel room and then a diving pool.
There's no comparison really, Jerry, is there, with like kind of Olympians, whether it's what Ollie's doing, swimming, diving, or athletes, and what the kind of Premiership footballers or basketballers are experiencing, really. You say to a Premiership player, like, you're going to be missing 2 weeks this season, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, there's
I'll put the Netflix on, like we've
60
been talking
games a
about.
season, like.
Yeah, for the Olympians, once every 4 years, and the whole training schedule all kind of build into that kind of 1 point, what's at stake. It's absolutely huge, Ollie, isn't it? It is huge, totally different, like, you know what I mean? So it's almost a desperation there. I know it's an obvious thing. It's an easy thing for footballers to say, oh, well, it's all about, safety. But when you've committed so much, you're invested so much in that 4 year period to arrive at that 1 point.
Yeah, and it's not just a 4 year investment either. It's a whole lifespan of starting when you're 7, 8 years old on that poolside, and the family investments as well. It's not just yourself, it's a whole team effort to get you there for that one moment over those 2 weeks.
And are you running through the various scenarios? If this was postponed for a couple of years, like was in the papers yesterday, what would that mean? Like, are you prepared for every eventuality, or is there a possibility, like, I don't know what your retirement plans were. I know you're in college at the moment, so obviously you've already begun to plan for life after diving, but what if it is a 2 year wait? Are you like?
Well, I'm relatively healthy. I'm sure I could keep on kicking for another 2 years. And even having said that, I was even considering going to the to attempt to try and qualify for the Olympics in 2024.
Right,
okay.
So this is
there's life in me yet.
Okay,
and,
fair enough.
That won't be the case for other athletes. This 2 year extent might actually see a few off. This could be the last shot at it. Like,
and for some countries as well, when it comes to your own personal funding, we're very lucky in Ireland that we get Sport Ireland funding. But there's some countries where athletes don't get funded. So to then carry on for another 2 years when they're coming to the end of their career, to sustain a lifestyle of trying to train 6 days a week, have a full-time job as well. So it's I mean, universally, it's going to be tough for a lot of people.
So the best case scenario is obviously that somehow a vaccine emerges and everybody starts to see a massive reduction in the numbers of people who are impacted. That's unlikely to happen. The most realistic scenario is that a lot of countries experience a boom in the number of confirmed cases, and that more countries follow what Denmark have done and what Italy have done and go into complete lockdown. In that scenario, what do you think is most likely to happen, and what do you want to happen?
I think it always comes down to health and safety first. Like I said at the beginning, there's things bigger than sport at the end of the day, which is people's livelihoods, and we all have family members, some who are vulnerable as well. So it's a very tricky situation to be in. But for me, I'd always follow the advice I'm given by the doctors at the institute, who I dare say get their information from doctors higher up down the line, government officials, and also the World Health Organization as well. And I think for each country as well, it's not just the same proposition. I think it has to be tailor-made to each country, because some countries are kind of suffering a lot worse than others as well. So it's if we don't get to compete at the Olympics, that's life at the end of the day, and it's unfortunate. But at the same time, I mean, for me, diving, it's not going to be my whole life, and there's so much more to look forward to in life as well. So it's if we get to go, I'll put myself in the most healthiest position possible.
All right, well, we wish you the best of luck. We'll obviously keep up to date with what's happening on that scenario as it unfolds.